Hello, everybody at Surrey Muse, and then anybody tuning in for the one and only Surrey Muse. I'm SheLa Nefertiti Morrison. I'm the open mic opener, and I just want to thank Sana Janjua for bringing her A game always, her enthusiasm, and that warm and beautiful smile she brings. And I'm really excited and very honored to share the bill with authors Cynthia Sharp, poet Joanna Lilly, and somebody I am not yet familiar with, but very, very intrigued by, Haytham Al-Hamadeh, talking about the work of Jean-Léon Gérôme, who lived from 1824 to 1904. And I'm always so excited by Surrey Muse. It's the best. Thank you, Fauzi Rafiq and Mariam Zoradrani and Helga and Alex and everyone who I've missed someone, I'm sure, Randeep, who puts this on. It's the best. That's how I feel about it. So with that, I am going to read. This is my first time ever doing a Zoom video, so doing my best here. Something that's a true story happened in my childhood called My Tricycle Renegade. Stanley lived on the other side of the street and crossed the busy road on his own. He told me, "My parents said I can." I was 5 years old and impressed by 5.5-year-old Stanley's growing up freedom. Stanley and I had both somehow just gotten red and blue chrome bicycles. Oops, chrome tricycles. There's a big difference. They had long scooped banana seats. Mine had streamers dangling from the handlebars in rainbow colors that flew in the wind when I rode. Stanley's had long curved monkey bars. I was a blue-eyed tomboy with yellow curly hair that fell like springs on Grandma's old chair. Stanley had straight black hair, light brown skin, and brown eyes that twinkled like greenish stars whenever he was about to get us in trouble. "Let's play renegades," he would say. This meant that we raced each other up and down the street like kamikazes. Neither of us knew what renegade meant, but when we said it, we felt like big kids. We did not know what kamikaze meant either, but we always yelled kamikaze whenever we raced with our eyes shut. I always opened my eyes before Z. Sometimes we pretended we were rescuing animals from a forest fire or some of our neighbors from a flood. "Hurry, jump on, the fire's catching up. Grab hold, the water's rising." Often I had Tubby, my best friend teddy bear, worn down and scrawny from hugs, tied with string to the bars of my tricycle. I was fire chief while Tubby was my loyal lieutenant, a word I knew from my mom yelling that Dad had only been a lieutenant in the war to save the Jews and gypsies. In Renegades, Tubby was in charge of giving drinks of water to the overheated squirrels and mice, while bears and wolves were behind us, coming closer. I told Stanley I had had a dream about this, to stand our ground because the scary animals knew not to hurt us. Stanley had a G.I. Joe strapped to his monkey bars with something from his mummy's drawer called a garter belt. "Garter snakes don't wear belts." We agreed, a bit confused, but we knew that we needed to keel over in laughter, and we did. Each time his daddy visited, Stanley got the best presents, especially when he, the father, didn't stay long. Stanley wasn't allowed to have kids over. He also wasn't allowed to go home for 2 hours every day. We were not sure how long that was, but it was long enough for him to tell me G.I. Joe's whole life story, how he wrestled dinosaurs, jumped from airplanes, and could hold his breath forever in the bathtub. We were not too sure what a GI was, but a babysitter had taken us to the pool where we saw a lifeguard rescue a kid. It turned out the kid was just coughing a lot because he had swallowed water. But Stanley said that G.I. Joe must be a lifeguard too, and the G.I. must stand for go in. Someone's drowning. Stanley was sure that we should go to the park and play in the wading pool. I reminded, a word I had just learned, that I reminded him that we could not go without an almost grown-up with us. Besides, I would need my mother's permission. But Stanley had all the bases covered. Vula and Donnie and Robbie, lots of kids from the block are already there. When I was still unsure, he coaxed, "Oh, I already talked to your mom and she said it was okay. Besides, my mom's friend, Mrs. Lucasta, is there." About 20 blocks later, we weren't sure because we couldn't count past 10. We were at the park. There were lots of people there, but I did not see our friends. Then Stanley three-wheeled over to a plump plastic chicken on a giant spring. He jumped off his trike into the saddle onto the chicken. I followed, but it was harder for me to get onto because I was shorter. I had to stand on my tricycle seat and then kind of slide onto the wobbly ride. What to play on next? The twisty slide, the swings, the jungle gym, the roundabout, the sandbox. My mommy said that the sandbox was just a giant kiddie litter and that kids who played in the sandbox got worms in their bums. When I said I had to go home because it would soon be supper time and my mom would be yelling for me, Stanley half-heartedly said, "Oh, Mrs. Lucasta is around here somewhere." I guess I kind of looked scared, so Stanley suddenly said, "I bet there will be pizza at my house." With that, Stanley took the lead because I was not too sure which way to go to my house in this new world of so many roads and buildings. When I got home, I was late, so I confessed. Mommy was angry and said there would be no dessert for me that night. It was my favorite, lime jello. Dad would be late too, but that's different, Mom said. I protested that Stanley had told me he had got her permission, and I promised to never ever go to the park like that again. She said I had missed dinner, but I could have my jello, but next time your luck is over. I didn't exactly know what luck was, and the park had been so much fun, especially not having to wait for someone to take us. I think I mostly heard next time. A couple of days later, about 10 pale people came dancing along our street, singing Hare Krishna, over and over. They had shaved heads, wore flowing orange, yellow robes. They tinged finger cymbals like I had heard in nursery school rhythm band, and they had jangling bells around their ankles. As they came door to door with big, happy faces, if we got close enough, they handed out thin books from really big purses. News amongst the nearby children spread fast. "Hey, there's a Martian lady with a bald head on the Robertsons' veranda." Pretty soon there was a bicycle patrol following them. If one of the Martians got too close, the kids pedaled away fast, only to turn right around and come back and follow and stare. From a distance, I somehow knew was safe. Stanley yelled, "Nice dress, mister." One of the Martians waved and called us over with his hand. Stanley and I broke from the pack so we could see up close. "Hello, young man," said a daddy-aged gentleman with pink cheeks and watery gray eyes and a curtain ring through his nose. Stanley smiled. His chest swelled. He was called young man. The Martian said, "We are Hare Krishnas, lovers of love." "Hi," I said, looked up. The Martian turned to me. He had a honey-colored tail of hair at the back of his head. The man held out a plastic bag and offered me something from it that had a sweet smell. I remembered that we were not supposed to take candy from strangers, but Stanley reached in and took some. Stanley said, his mouth full. Even though it was rude to whisper in front of people, Stanley whispered to me that the man was not a person, but a genie from a magic lamp, and that if I ate some candy, I would get 3 wishes. The genie man asked, "Won't you have some too? We made it ourselves. It's a gift from Lord Rama." Stanley was already enjoying a second handful, so I said, "Okay." He held out the bag, smiled big, and said, "Lord Rama knows you are a thankful child." I liked Lord Rama. I was a thankful child. This candy was good. Maybe just no one had noticed what a thankful child I really was before this moment. I reached in and took a few of the doughy raisin balls. They tasted yummy, and I felt like I had just done some kind of good deed. But what exactly? I was not sure. I forgot that my mother told me that taking candy from strangers was a no-no, but I knew Mummy believed in luck, and I was about to get 3 wishes from a real genie who looked like a skinnier Mr. Clean on the bottles I was not allowed to touch under the sink. I felt so lucky that I decided to ride home and tell my mother I met a genie, a whole herd of genies, and not one looked like that funny white lady on that TV show Bewitched. These genies were real. When I got home, my mom had already heard. Shabna, Snodgrass, the prissy kid next door, had told on me. My mother stood over me and demanded to know, "Did you talk to those strangers?" "Yes," I admitted in a tumble, "but they're genies, and one of my 3 wishes was just for you." She loomed above me. "Did you eat any of their candy?" I nodded slowly, and in a flash, my mom was around the kitchen corner and out the door. I ran to the living room, climbed up on the Chesterfield to look out the window, and saw my mom in pursuit of the strangers with candy. Stanley rode by and waved at me. My mom had reached the genies. She started yelling. I scrunched up my eyes and wished my wishes again, for Stanley to never move away, for a big kid's 2-wheeler, and for Mummy to win the lottery. When I opened my eyes, I saw Mummy pointing at the genie's candy bag, but she could not get a rise out of them. A rise, as my dad would say, when she went after him. The genies just bowed a little and danced a lot. I saw one give her a book. Then I saw Mummy turn and come storming back. I ran to the kitchen. I wondered if I should hide in the cupboard. "I sure scolded them," she said, when she was back strong in the kitchen. I was so glad that that iron frying pan just stayed where it was in her hand. She flung the book on the stacks of the old chatelaines and Women's Day magazine she had in piles high on a board above the radiator. I wondered if her scolding or their lord's booklet tossing would somehow wreck my wishes, but it would not, because I prayed to all my stuffed animals that morning. On the booklet's cover, I saw there were some people with an elephant, like in my Animals A to Z book, but a blue elephant. A blue I could not even match my crayon to. The people had blue skin. If I had known, one of my wishes would have been to meet the Blue Lords. Maybe they could change everything at home. Mummy had started vacuuming. I climbed on a chair to reach the book. I got it then. I went out and sat on the back steps, looking at pictures of where the genies really came from, while sounding out words like my dad taught me on his lunch hour when I was in the hospital for pneumonia a few months before. Words like Vishnu and Arjuna, even though I did not understand them. But I did get elephant and destroyer. I had heard Daddy yell destroyer at my little brother. I agreed. The summer crept closer to school starting. Shabna Snodgrass told me that the Hare Krishna were bastardizing her mom's religion. I couldn't believe she said that word. Religion. I would be so upset if my mom knew. I went home and told her. Well, you can imagine how she reacted. Yep, there'll be no bastardizing religion in our home. We don't do religion. Who was the bastard who said that? Was it that little Snodgrass kid? Mm-hmm. So, school started. The summer had crept to a close. One hot day, Stanley and I sat on our banana seats with no shirts on, licking our ice cream cones. Stanley sang, "I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream." Ice cream dripped down my chin onto my chest and wound a trail under my arm down my side. Suddenly, I began to yowl. My mom dashed out to the backyard to find me, my arm clenched tight against my side. Suddenly, I began to yowl. My mom dashed out to the backyard to find me, my arm clenched tight against my side, with Stanley looking on wide-eyed. With my other arm, I put my hand in my armpit and felt a wasp stuck there. For a moment, it stumbled in my sweet and sticky armpit. Then the half-squished wasp flew off the way my daddy walked. After he had been drinking too much from his cabinet of pretty-looking bottles. I throbbed all over with pain. It was way worse than the last whatever it was that sent me to Sick Children's Hospital. Mommy brought me into the house and washed me off with a cold cloth. She gave me some creamy orange-tasting liquid from the row of kids' medicines inside the fridge door. Red for colds, green for asthma, bright yellow for tummy ache. Oh, I've forgotten what pink was for. I knew pale yellow was for pain. It felt really good when you took it. She had to put that one up high because I was taking it sometimes when she didn't give it to me. Codeine. There's your codeine, Mommy said and patted my head. Codeine was a grown-up word that, like renegade, kamikaze, we named a game after. In codeine, Stanley and I held our breath and pretended we saw stars in the daytime. Then we lay on the grass and held our breath until we gasped for air and saw stars in our heads. Soon after I got better, we were off playing renegades. I asked Stanley why his tricycle had a bar across it and mine did not. His eyes shone. He said, "Come here, I'll show you why." So we pedaled over to my house. Stanley told me to check to make sure my mom wasn't looking. The coast was clear. We pushed our tricycles on the grass and went behind the garage. All of a sudden, Stanley pulled down his pants. Then, pants around his ankles, he peed a big, shaky S plus. As he did, he said with authority, "This is why I have a bar on my bike." We had the same stuff on top, but we had such different stuff on the bottom. Stanley pulled up his pants, and before you could say Dick loves Jane, Stanley's lips were upon mine in one slobbery kiss. The second our lips unlocked, I shouted, "Yuck," and ran. My mom had just come outside to hang clothes on the line. I hid behind my mom and stuck my tongue out at Stanley, who had his pants down again and was trying to finish the second letter. When my mom says, "Stanley, is that you behind there? Come out right now. What are you doing? I want to see." He hurried to pull his pants up, I guess, but he didn't get quite there because it was sticking out and his zipper was undone and he was dribbling as he went away, and he didn't even say, "Bye, Mrs. Morrison," or anything like that, or ask to stay for dinner or something like he usually did. Well, I have to admit, as he rode past out of our yard with a big boy's grin, I will admit it made my 5-year-old heart kind of flutter. Shortly before the start of the school year, Stanley's family moved, but I'll never forget how my Tricycle Renegade showed me what big boys have besides bars on their bikes.